October 26th, 2018, and I'm going to be talking to Andy Paice, my friend and colleague in the UK, about a little model that I made uh, on sense making. And different people have different ways of making sense, and there's consequences to that. So we're just going to explore around on this model, and I'm going to do a screen share here to start it. So in this picture, we have me. This is my basic world, my internal world, how I think, the ways I make sense of the world. And this is somebody else. Could be Andy, it could be my partner, it could be somebody, you who is viewing this, whatever. It's another person. And this squarish box here is reality. We won't get into in depth what reality is. It's a very complex topic. I like to go with Philip K. Dick's definition that reality is that which, when you stop believing in it, doesn't go away. So this is what you have to wrestle with, is what's real, and some of that is kind of out in the world. Some of that is inside my reality. Overlaps with that. My internal sense-making systems overlap with that. So this is divided into my universe here is divided into three parts. One is what I'm calling my experience and understanding, which is meant to convey that part of the way I think that actually aligns with reality. So this is reality, and this is the way I think and understand things. And then there's all these other parts of the way I think, which don't necessarily line up very well with reality. And I'm calling that my beliefs, assumptions, biases, denial, delusions, etc. This is, in reality, these things are not nearly as clear cut as this chart suggests. But for the purposes of looking at what's going on, it can help us to sort that out. And we have a similar three divisions in terms of the other person's universe. This is yellow is the other person's universe. And what they understand and experience overlaps with reality. And then they have a bunch of things which are not necessarily connected to reality very much. Their beliefs, assumptions, biases, denial, delusions, etc. And then there are things where we overlap. Here's this part here is our shared experience and understanding. We communicate really well about this because we have total, shared reference points for it. And reality, reality shares our reference points in here. We're talking about stuff that's real here. And here's things where we share beliefs, assumptions, biases, etc. And I realize one of the things that isn't adequately shown in this chart, because down here could be the ones we share, or it could be where our ideas collide and we actually disagree. In making this model, I put our shared stuff here, but that's the whole other issue about where we disagree. Here, you could say, this is the area that you have that I don't share. We could say this is where we disagree are in those areas, but the chart doesn't show them clashing, colliding. So this little two-dimensional thing can't communicate that adequately. So there is the next, you see the shift here to the next part?
Yeah, it's moved down.
Yeah, so here I'm imagining an ideal interchange. You and me are communicating, we're sharing experience, we're doing things together. We're engaged in a way where we're connected to the world. This blue line here, blue arrow, double arrow, and the fact that my border is dotted, it's porous now. Information can flow back and forth more easily, and your border is porous also. So here's me checking out the world, and the world sending me information. There's a flow of information between me and reality. And same for you over here. Here's you checking out the world and getting feedback from the world. And then this is intended to represent you and me communicating together. So you're saying things to me, here's what seems true to me, here's what I'm saying to you about what seems true. And it's the same things going on over here. And as our, compared to the previous slide, we are overlapping more, and we're more overlapping with reality. We still have some delusions down here, but that is decreasing as we move more into, being connected to reality. So our shared experience and understanding increasingly approximate what's actually out there. So this is interactions amongst realms, my realm, your realm, and the realm of reality, as co-intelligent sense-making unfolds. If we just talk together, if this line and this line were all that was going on, we could get more and more understanding. We understand, oh, I understand what you're saying. And we could be filling out our understanding in a way that is just making more unified delusions. But because the word co-intelligent here has a lot to do with, if you're intelligent, theoretically, you're able to learn from your experience. You're able to make some kind of sense about reality, have some kind of understanding, operate on that understanding, see what happens in the world, get feedback, and reset your understanding, revise your understanding to fit what you learn by interacting with the world. That's a major part of what co-intelligence is all about. So that means that our shared reality is increasing while our connection to the real world is increasing also. So in this next chart,
I just want to ask a question for the last one.
Yeah.
So we got the first one. This is pretty much two people not really interacting much. When we're talking about sense making here, they're just two people in their different worlds. They may have this overlap of understandings and shared experience, but there's not much sort of questioning and thinking going on. Whereas the next slide,
right? This one is kind of static, and not shared, and this one has a lot of dynamics in it, and there's more sharedness going on.
So this one, I'm just trying to think of concrete things that I'm trying to bring this into line with what kind of scenarios could be going on here. This could be two people looking at some kind of a problem that they've got, and they're trying to figure out what the hell's going on, and spending time really thinking deeply about it. Is that more about what we're talking about?
That's an extreme example. Two people could have gone to a movie or read a book or something, and they're talking about what they saw and what they thought, and go, oh, wow, I didn't realize. Yeah, that could really be, I see your point on that. That could really be what it's about. You could understand that way. Any kind of conversation where people are talking about their real experiences or their beliefs. You could have a conservative person, a liberal person talking together and again, you're not necessarily connected to reality, but just talking about, oh, you say that. Oh, I didn't know you guys thought that way. And it's sort of filling out, and there's more and more, even though there's two dimensions here of shared sense making. One can be we're both agreeing that this thing makes sense, and the other is we both understand each other's views so well that we have a sense of the ecosystem of our shared opinions. Here's the way the landscape of opinions is becoming more clear by our talking, which is a starting place for further engagement. If you think your landscape is like, you're in a totally different world from me, you're New York and I'm the middle of the Amazon. I mean, we're not. It's really hard to communicate across that. So all that is part of what goes on in real human communications, and it's not all represented in this chart specifically. But yes, here the dynamic that's intended to communicate that these thick lines are arrows there's lots going on in that dynamic, and that's what's stretching. These people are actually being stretched. Their ways of thinking are being stretched to embrace more of what's going on and more of what each other think and feel. And you could also check. See, this part can be, hey, I think you're saying blah, blah, blah. Is that what you're saying? That kind of checking in and the feeling heard. This realm of shared reality just between these people, including this, is the guys in this, the people in this picture are feeling really heard by each other. When they talk, they're getting checked in with and going, yeah. They actually know that they're sharing something. Should we go on to the next one?
So there could be another scenario where two people know about each other's ways of thinking, but aren't really prepared to explore the other person's worldview enough to have that sense of expansion and shifting, isn't it? That can quite often happen.
Yeah, theoretically, it can happen even on totally one-sided. I can take a bunch of time to read everything you've written, and watch videos of you talking, and I can expand into your world with you not even knowing I'm existing. That's another one-sided dynamic. That's like somebody can research what's going on in the world, and as a scientist, for example, and not communicate it to anybody. There's individual and collective dynamics going on here. If you think of science as being a way that all of society is doing this engagement with reality, and there are different scientists and sciences who are doing this research, and this could represent the diversity of science exploring the sciences, exploring reality, and the global conversation and sharing of experiments. And debating each other's work. We could interpret this chart as a description of that as well, collective enterprise. We covered these adequately for you. Go on to the next.
I think so, yeah, that's good.
Okay. See we're doing an archetypal arrogance and presumption. So this guy is the dark solid circle. He knows what's real. Reality is contained within his worldview. There's nothing that's real that he doesn't already know. This is the ultimate, arrogance. Here's somebody else. And we have here, so this is my experience, understandings. I'm the arrogant guy. Beliefs, assumptions, delusions. My experience and delusions are not separate. I just know what's real, and I don't make any distinction between what I believe and what's actually there. My fixed sense of reality is overwhelmingly shaped by my unacknowledged assumptions, filters, limited perspectives, rejecting realities outside of what I believe I know. So when I encounter reality that is against what I believe, I just ignore it and say it must be false because it violates what I know. Cognitive bias. There's a whole study of cognitive biases and how our conceptual thinking filters our perceptions. So this is an extreme example of that. And you come along and you are intersecting with me, and you think these things, you believe these things, etc., and you believe these things. Well, of course these are true because they overlap with what I know, and of course these are false because they don't fit with what I know, and I know everything. And I have here a very light pink, large square here, which is what's really real, and that's not acknowledged as even existing because it's outside of this hard circle. So this is an example of presumption. And assumption is a funny way. Presumption is like prejudice. It's prejudging, and this is you're assuming things before even, and the assumption is taking it on, and presumption is just putting it out there as that's what's real before you even really look. And this, of course, is an extreme. Nobody is totally like this, and all of us have some of this dynamic, and societies have this dynamic, and you get you get societies where, watching, for example, what's called the Trump phenomenon in the U.S., there's a sense of it's becoming more and more acceptable to ignore reality, to ignore science. It's becoming less and less, arguments are becoming less and less rational. There's less and less willingness of different people with different perspectives to listen to each other. So this dynamic is happening at a society-wide level at the moment, not just an individual level. And of course, lots of individuals are behaving this way. And this goes on all sides. I tend to be more progressive and liberal than conservative in terms of my traditional political beliefs, but I'm very aware of how my fixed ideas get in the way. And I am even more aware of other people on my side having those kinds of responses. I see it most clearly in the people I disagree with, but even the people I agree with, I go, hey, wait a minute, we don't actually know that. So the willingness to not know, the willingness to be curious, the willingness to ask, the willingness to feel the discomfort of uncertainty, the discomfort of challenge, and hold that in abeyance without having to resolve it too quickly. These are all skills at being more this way, being able to be this way instead of being this way. So go on to the last slide.
Yeah, I mean, just one thought that comes up for this as well, to say societal, but it's a very cultural thing. Western culture has a certain, limitation of what it thinks is real and what can happen. And,
Yeah,
we talk about indigenous cultures, and their conception of what is real is, sometimes radically different of what the universe is.
And you can flip this. You can go, okay, this white is the Western culture, and this is pink is the indigenous culture. Or you can reverse this. This is the indigenous culture. This is the Western culture. Right. Or the Eastern or Western, whatever. There's all these different cultures. It can be done at a cultural level as well as whole society or individual or group or whatever. These are cognitive dynamics. These are things that go on as we're trying to make sense when we encounter other entities that are making sense in a different way. It can even be, sense making can be different forms of intelligence. There's intuitive and heart-based and spiritual intelligence on one side, and then there's very rational kinds of intelligence on another side. And you can say the rational people are in the yellow and the intuitive people are here, or the intuitive people are here and the rational people. It's like these dynamics have manifest in all sorts of different ways, in all the different kinds of ways and realms in which we make sense of the world. And sense is such an interesting, sense, that makes sense. When I say that makes sense, when I'm saying it, I am basically telling you that fits my understanding. And sense is also perception. So the equation of perception and understanding in sense is a really interesting, just linguistic thing.
Yeah.
Go on to the next one.
Yeah.
So here, now this looks like totally crazy, and I want to first reduce the confusion here. The pink in the background, cloudy thing, I'm making it not a square because reality isn't a square. Reality is not a cloud either, but it's definitely not a square. So the sense of a dotted line, that what we think of as reality is, even no matter how far we expand our sense of what's real, there's always more to it. So part of what I'm communicating is having a dotted line. This is a big picture reality here, but even it is porous. There's more going on beyond whatever we can know. And then each one of these, there's a specific circle or rectangle or whatever. These are very specific, different shapes. And I've made them different colors to give them distinct identity. You can see this trapezoid here. You can see this circle here. And I've made them solid or dotted in various ways to show how solid these individuals or these specific groups are feeling their sense. They're making solid sense, and this is what it, and they are each embracing a different chunk of this whole reality. And some of them are extending beyond the reality, so it doesn't, they're out there in their assumptions that it's not real. And then all these are, of course, lines of communication, connection, curiosity, information flow, going between different points. And I made sure, I'm pretty sure in this, that every circle and square and every entity has lines going from it to other entities. So what this is trying to communicate beyond being a scribble, which is what it looks like, is that these are different entities, different sense-making systems, each of which covers some of the ground of what's real. None of them covers all of it. Some of them are bigger. It's like this one covers a lot of the ground. This one covers smaller ground. But you can't get anything near a bigger picture of something that reflects what's reality unless these entities, which cover different parts of reality, are communicating to each other. So I have, most of us usually find there are more than one or two viewpoints in any given situation, and that reality can't be so readily boxed in the sense of square. Luckily, there are ways that we can engage truly diverse viewpoints like these and capacities like different forms of intelligence to discover more of reality's complex evolving landscape, which is this dotted line thing here. We just need to apply some of our many co-intelligent tools and understandings, many of which have to do with conversation. Overwhelmingly, it's about interaction, conversation, but some of it has to do with quality of information and a variety of other things, various systemic things that can be done. But we're all looking for how to be more intelligent together in order to see larger pictures. So using some of our many co-intelligent tools and understandings for shared sense making that can reveal the greater common sense. Common sense is such a great term. Most of the time when people say that's common sense, again, that means that fits what I and my friends think. But to generate true common sense, you need diversity. You need diversity, and you need ways to weave that diversity into a larger picture, a whole picture of a situation that you could never have separately. And that's this reference to the wise.
That's the uncommon common sense.
What is it? The uncommon common sense?
Yes.
Well, it's the hyper common common sense. It's the meta common sense. This is true common sense, because I guess it's not true. If you said something that fits what I and my friends think, then we suddenly have common ground. So that's common sense. But if you're thinking of, we the people, kind of a bigger we, a we of a society, a we of a community, a we of humanity, you need something that is bigger than that. And the more different, these, to get this person and this little circle and this circle to talk about the ground that they have is much easier than getting this oval and this circle to talk, because they're covering such different ground together. So having conversations where there's lots of interactions between lots of different perspectives, and all of those interactions are designed to help evoke and clarify the ground that each perspective is covering, rather than trying to dismiss different pieces of the puzzle that you don't want to look at. It's like, how does this fit? It feels totally bizarre to me, but there's a bunch of people that think that way, so let's figure out how it might make sense. And if it doesn't, then agree to disagree and let it be part of the opinion landscape that is not dismissed, but we don't know. It's sort of like we're too limited to see how all this fits yet, but it's not that you're totally nuts.
Right.
So, and that allows for future. And there are definitely different methodologies that are better at bringing together people from very widely different perspectives. Uh, and it usually has to do with feeling really heard. The dynamic facilitation that Andy and I
Right.
are both familiar with is a particularly potent way where the facilitator is helping each person feel fully heard in the space of the whole group. So everybody's hearing it, but they're hearing it in a different way because the facilitator is modeling this dramatic form of really wanting to know and really getting it until the person feels fully satisfied and then moving on to the next person. So that's a lot of the understandings in this are modeled on that kind of thing. So this thing I'm pointing out, the Wise Democracy Project and its link, because that project is about using the diversity of whole systems, whole populations, to get deeper, bigger pictures of what's going on to generate wiser solutions, wiser initiatives. And that project has a lot of things to keep in mind, design elements to create group and social systems that are able to do that. So this thing is one invitation into that world, which has lots of practical applications, lots of examples, resources, whatever, which people are invited to get into. Anything else we should cover here?
I'm just thinking, what comes up for me here is, I don't know, I feel that, I mean, obviously I know this thinking, this theory already, but I think, if somebody were to come to this and see this, it's like, oh yeah, this can be true. And how, like you pointed out, this oval shape in the left-hand corner and the yellow circle up in the top right-hand corner, how those could be two worldviews that would probably mutually think possibly that each other was crazy in the real world, and maybe even if one was more powerful than the other, that one might even get locked up somewhere,
That's right. That's right. Right.
But the interesting thing, obviously, the lines of communication and the fact that if collectively we could start to get an inkling that this model could be true or have some bearing to reality, it would help us to open up our lines of communication and to thought, okay, you look crazy to me, you look stupid, and your ideas are even dangerous, but maybe I need to be a bit more curious and try.
And/or who else should be part of this conversation?
Right.
The fact is, this guy here and this guy here are linked by this person and this person and this person. So having just two, the whole idea, and that's part of the problem with our political or majoritarian political systems, is that they're biased towards for and against, towards you're with me or against me, towards two major parties, et cetera. The winner take all thing we have in the United States really does that. Parliamentary systems are a little less that, but still the idea of majoritarianism, where one party is part, not wholly, where one part of the system dominates as if it is the whole.
Yeah.
If it dominated as just we're a part and we're in charge now, but it masquerades as we the people. The United used to read the paper. The UK does this. And it's like
the UK has decided for Brexit. Well, actually, 52% of people who voted,
right. Quite separate from the fact that it's manipulable, et cetera. I mean, there's lots of things that are wrong with the political system.
Yeah.
But noting that if you get into the understanding that underlies this model, if you don't get fixated on the model itself, but try to tap into what it is that the model is describing, you begin to see that majoritarianism has a fatal flaw. Supermajoritarianism gets better, but even the idea of somebody's going to decide rather than all these different entities are going to talk and share perspectives and share, realities until there's a realization of, oh, this makes sense
Mm.
because they've covered the ground. This is how it all fits. It's very much like putting the puzzle together.
Yeah.
So I'm, again, understanding it rather than getting stuck in the model. But the model can help you think, oh yeah, we need some other people to help this guy understand this guy and understand everything that's in between.
Right.
And if you get those people, you're going to find other incompletenesses that aren't even anywhere near those two people's viewpoints. This circle covers a lot more ground, and it has a piece of the picture that this guy has. So it's sort of like, if you keep the conversation going, it's like, okay, we're running into this. Who do we need to include who knows something about that? And once you include them, they're going to have differences from other people. So it's just like, ultimately, you want what they call the whole system in the room, the whole system in the conversation, because that will cover the reality that you've got. But you never get the whole system, really. It's an ideal.
No.
But don't be arrogant about who you have being the right people.
Right.
You're obviously going to miss somebody.
Exactly. So if we're trying to get the perfect conversation and the perfect configuration of the different parts to arrive at an understanding of reality, we're always doomed to failure, but at least we can get larger and larger pictures and understandings and of the complexity that reflects more of reality than we have in our limited systems.
The failures are indicators of where to put your attention next.
Right. Right. Yes. Yes.
They're not, this doesn't work, so let's not do it again. It's like, okay, here's something we obviously missed. Let's not miss it next time.
Yeah.
Knowing that we're going to miss something else next time. I mean, the missing things is going to be inevitable just by the nature. Not only is reality complex, it's always changing. So,
right.
And this is where it shifts from having a conversation in the room to what is the nature of a culture where different people and groups are communicating to each other in ways that help them generate common sense. How would you organize? That's part of the Wise Democracy Project also. It's called Wise Democracy. It's like, you want a system, you want a culture where this happens automatically at every level, in all circumstances, all the time. And there's nobody knows what's happening everywhere. It's not like a top-down, here we're going to get this conversation, that's going to get the policy. We need that now, but ultimately the goal is having this whole thing be representative of all the perspectives in our culture, constantly communicating to each other, and information and perspectives leaking this way and that across the whole system. And as reality evolves, that kind of system, that kind of culture can actually respond collectively without it having any center at all.
Yes, and I think one thing that's interesting to point out is that obviously in the Wise Democracy pattern language, it's a sort of it's a mapping of all those technologies that are out there that may be under the radar from the mainstream society, that go much, much deeper than the majoritarian voting systems, that actually do enable all these different parts to communicate with each other and to find coherent ways forward. And so I think that's a big, big hope for the future, that these things exist, and I'm happy to speak out about to share the word about the Wise Democracy pattern language, because really sharing all those useful tools that can actually help us to come to this common sense.
You could even, I just realized this now, I didn't before, you could say each of these circles or hexagrams or whatever are methodologies, are different approaches, each of which gives the capacity to make a different kind of sense. It's not just different worldviews or perspectives, it's different processes. You know,
Yeah.
we know about World Cafe and open space and dynamic facilitation. Each of these things, if everywhere in the culture people knew these things
Yeah.
and were using them on and off depending on the circumstances, that
Right.
would help digest the whole experience as well. You know,
Yeah. 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 Absolutely.
and all the artists, here's the artist over here, and here's the scientist over here, and you
Mm.
know, here's the storytellers over here. You know,
Yeah, this is great.
okay.
So yeah, that's been fascinating. Thanks for sharing that, Tom.
Yeah, so we'll get a version of this video stuck
Yeah.
up on the Wise Democracy Project
Yeah.
website, and people can write comments about it or send comments if you want directly to me at cii@igc.org, cii@igc.org, and I'll be happy to explore this further with you if you want.
Yes. Opening up the lines of communication. That would be good.
Here we are. That's it.